In the mix with DJ Rambo Rich.
Okay, so welcome to the What's That Music About podcast. I'm your host, DJ Rambo Rich. And in this episode, we speak to producer Camthe1. So with no further ado, I'm going to hand over to him to introduce himself. So first of all, thanks for coming on the podcast. And it's really great to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So I thought I would just share a little bit more to your listeners, just who I am, what I do, and everything. So I am a hip hop producer based in LA. I also do a little bit of dance, house, EDM, a little bit of everything as well. And I've been doing music my entire life. Grew up playing piano. Later on, I worked in education, teaching people how to play music, compose, and just over the years that led to being more creative, working more as a producer full time. I feel like I've lived 3 to 4 lives in music and almost had like individual eras with everything. So I'm excited to talk further into that. It's a little difficult to sum up in one introduction.
Definitely, I love that. Yeah, so you're a producer, and I read on your Spotify, like just so you said you're a classically trained hip hop producer. So I just want you to expand on like sort of the meaning behind that a little bit, because when you say classically trained, it could mean several things. So I was just interested to ask that, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like my classical training at the piano has definitely made my journey in music just like really unique to me. Ever since I can remember, I've been always playing music. I started piano at the age of 3 years old and always continued with that when I grew up doing other things. So I also grew up being an athlete. I played baseball, I was a swimmer, I tried a bunch of different things. And as I got older, when I was more in my high school years and I had to make a little bit more of a decision for what I wanted to do with my life, music was always just that constant when I had the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And it was just something I was really motivated to explore even more. And so, with my classical training on the piano, I was also a creative person as well. So, at a very young age, I would write my own original music on the piano, and I actually had a piano teacher for like 10 years. And in order to stay in her studio, I had to write one song on the piano per year. And that really like forced me to just like be creative, to explore, to step outside my comfort zone. That really just kind of led me to fully compose and explore other styles. And later on, before I went to college at Cornish College of the Arts, I was also part of the Young Composers Workshop at Benaroya Hall, where I got to compose my original music for symphony musicians. So it was really valuable to work with classical musicians playing my music, getting that feedback at a really young age. And that really just shaped what I would bring into hip hop music, dance, and other genres later on as a producer now.
Definitely. I mean, it's interesting, like how like innovated quite a few people now, and it's interesting how like I've been saying this on a lot of the episodes of this series, how like you never know where certain skills and other, career paths or endeavors, those skills come back to help you in other things. So you never know, like you were talking there, that the skills come, you can use them in other things. They're never wasted.
Oh, absolutely. And I would say too, I'm almost turning 30. I actually turned 30 this weekend, so I'm getting ready for my birthday and everything. And like one of the things like that I found just like being at this point in life is because I've been using those skills for so many years, it's so freeing when I'm creating here in my studio where I don't have to like think about those things as much. It's almost a part of me. And it just kind of lets me be able to really just like let loose when I'm in those creative spaces and just really feel free to explore and not be held or limited to a certain thing. And I think that's something a lot that I've been working on as a creator over the past few years. You know, you mentioned just kind of like what you want to express in like a DJ set. I think of the same like as a producer for the music I make, where working in education, I met so many people where they told me like, man, I grew up playing piano, like I wish I stuck with it, or I did this
Yeah,
thing in music and I loved it, and I wish I could return to that, but life is like so busy now and I can't. And I've learned just to kind of pass on to people that music is almost like a meditative quality in a sense for
definitely. Yeah.
me. It is that way where if I'm just having like the best or worst day, I can just like come back to my studio, just like put my phone down, just like take a break from the world and just like be myself and create and just have the music be what I want it to be. So, especially with a lot of my new singles I've released, I've thought a lot about like when you say like you want to theme a DJ set around love. I think about like if I'm like dropping the song like on Spotify or whatever, I'm thinking about what do I want my listeners to pull away from my music? Like what do I want my listener to feel when they're hearing this song? And for me, it's kind of like the escapism in music that it offers, where I just want to have the type of music where someone can just like put it in their car coming home from work and be like, you know what, this is hot right here. I just got to turn this up. And this song's only 2 minutes, but damn, I just really vibe with that song. And that just like made my day right there. That's kind of the approach I always try to have as a creator, and something I try to really just bring to the artists that I'm so blessed to work with when we zero in on a project.
Definitely, I love that. I think what we're going to do now is going to move to the first round, which is mixtapes and memories. So 1 second, we'll be on mixtapes and memories. In mixtapes and memories, we talk about key moments that shaped your musical tastes and influences. So to start that off, what's your first, like, earliest musical memory you can remember?
Oh man, earliest musical memory.
I
You know,
love
that's
this.
tough for me.
Do you know why? Because I love taking people, I've said this before in this series, but I'll say it again. Like, I love taking people mentally back to where it all began. And because you're so busy with
Yeah.
the day to day of like, oh, I've got to make this song work. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. And then I like to take people back and think, hang on a minute, where were you like last year, for example? And you've come this far, you see. So yeah. So what was your first
Yeah.
musical memory?
Yeah, like my very this will be a little bit strange because I was so young. My
Mm,
earliest musical memory is when I started piano. I was 3 years old. Like I was just a kid. Like I think when we're like 3 years old, we barely remember anything
I know what you
in
mean.
life. But I remember having my very first piano teacher, where my mom would just like drive me to this person's house. She had this like upright piano in her basement, and all I remember is it was like every like Wednesday or something, I would like go to this person's house. And I always remember that because it was kind of like the fun day in the week when I was like in school or doing other things. I was like, this is like the one day I get to go on like an adventure and like do something cool. And I just remember just like seeing this upright piano and just sitting down and just like trying to like play some of the notes. And I remember one day where I was learning piano for a bit, and my teacher got this book for me. And it was the very first piano book I ever learned out of. And I remember like waiting for my lesson where there was someone before me. I just remember seeing this book on the piano, and I know it was for me. And the excitement I felt of like, oh man, I worked so hard on this instrument. And I was only like 3 years old, but it was that like internal feeling of like, man, I've been working hard. Like I'm getting the feel of this thing. And that book's for me. And I get to learn more of this stuff and to
Yeah.
like just kind of continue from there. And I just remember like being so excited. And that was like the earliest memory I had. And that kind of fueled my 18 years of being classically trained from there. And I've had so many experiences. As I mentioned earlier, I feel like I've lived so many lives in music. I'd say that's probably my earliest memory there. Yeah.
Definitely. I like the way that you say you feel you've lived so many lives. Like, I'm 34. I'm 34 this year myself, and I do feel
Mhm.
like myself. I've had quite a few lives being an actor, doing musical theatre, and it comes back to all those skills, doesn't it? Like you learn all these
Yeah.
skills. But no, definitely, I love that, and I love the fact that you were saying there, like you had the excitement to like do music, which I think at times people can forget about, can't they? With the such sort of like fast-paced nature of the world these days, you can forget about the sort of excitement that music is, and it should bring. So I love that. So what was your first like performance of like performing music, or are you more production side of things and more behind the scenes?
Yeah, so when I was younger, I performed a lot more. So when I was learning piano and everything, I would just perform in a lot of recitals, competitions, adjudications. So I actually performed quite a lot, and I got really comfortable in my formulative years doing things like that. And definitely like being able to like perform solo on the piano definitely gave me the confidence to do other
Mm.
things when I was older. One of the lives that I lived in music was when I was in my college years, when I went to Cornish College of the Arts in Seattle. I was expanding my writing, my producing, and I actually rapped for a time on my own music, but I admit I'm not the best rapper.
Yeah,
I'm better
yeah.
behind the boards, and I kind of pass that to other people who can better represent my sound and style. I've definitely like performed in many different parts of my career, but nowadays I'm definitely way more behind the scenes. I am really blessed to work with amazing artists around the world. I have 4 singles out right now. I have a lot more coming out this year, so I'm definitely excited to expand on that. I am teaching myself how to DJ and kind of step into other spaces a little
Yeah.
bit more. So over time, I think that could be potentially really interesting if I was able to have some type of live presence, but be able to pass that on to the, like a vocalist or rapper to be more of like the feature of that project. I definitely think that's kind of more how I'm operating more nowadays. Yeah.
Definitely with you being a producer as well, if you got into like more DJing as well, you could then sort of self promote your own tracks then, and especially at like live events, people would be like shazamming, what's this track?
Yeah.
And then suddenly the momentum starts, doesn't it? So it's definitely a good, I would say that's a good idea, definitely 100%. So what's the first gig you saw, like the first live performance you went to see?
And I have so many memories of seeing so many artists that I've idolized, seeing live that I remember a lot more, I would say, than like the very first performance, just because I think I just like grew up just going to a lot of classical performances and just like over time, like one didn't really stick out for that reason. But I can offer the most like memorable show I've ever been to that really just grew my love for hip hop and my perspective. It was when J. Cole dropped 2014 Forest Hills Drive. I feel like that's a legendary album. I go back to it all the time. And when he released that project, I just felt how special that was. It spoke to, just so many people. I just feel like it was just such a relatable story about like growing up like in a city and just kind of like finding your way out and being in a small town and realizing you have to get out of there and like chase your dreams and what that journey was for him. So I think like as a young musician, hearing that and seeing that live was really transformative for me. When I saw that performance, I'm actually, even though I'm in LA, I'm from Seattle originally. And when this performance happened, it was like in an amphitheater in the middle of nowhere in Washington State. And I remember the show, it had like the most stacked lineup. It was like J. Cole, Big Sean, you had like YG and and just like a lot of like their crew. It was like Janae Aiko, like so many like incredible artists. And I was just like so excited to go to the show. And so when I got there, it was like 1 in the afternoon, like middle of August. And I just like park in this like open farm field because I was like one of the first people there at this concert. When the show is over, it's like 1 in the morning. So like 12 hours
Right.
later. And I remember like walking outside and I couldn't even like find my car. And I'm like freaking out. I'm like, where's my car? Where did I park? Because it's like 5,000 cars, and I realized like, wait, it did not matter. Like that was the most spiritual experience going to that show where I'm like, you know what? Like if I just have to wait 2 hours in the middle of the night to find my car, like so be it because I just came from like
Yeah.
the coolest musical experience. So I think there's something special about like going to live performances that just like change or just like shape your perspective on music. And something I tell a lot as an educator to people I work with is it's not trying to replicate another artist or what they did, but it's seeing what someone else does and maybe find an aspect of it of like, that thing over there really resonates with me. I can put that in my tool belt, whether that's like a production technique, whether it's something someone does with their voice. It could be any aspect. And that's something that's been really cool for me as a producer to pull from a live setting.
Definitely. I mean, I like that you were saying there about, not replicating, sort of using that technique. Because I think a lot of people, until they find what is uniquely them, you have to sort of replicate your heroes until you get to
Yeah.
the point where you've sort of, I don't want to use find your voice, but I can't find a way to describe it better. But find your own voice and your own sound. And once you find, you only find that from emulating or not copying, but emulating the things you like. and then from that develops. I mean, I think, for example, if you take for example in the UK garage music is sort of where sort of grime music sort of started from, but from that,
Mhm.
garage went into house music as well. So it's interesting how it's two different avenues, completely different, but like they're two. It came from like one thing, you see, which is
Yeah,
interesting. Definitely.
yeah, absolutely.
So, what was the first album you physically bought? Because obviously you're similar age to me, you'll understand about the physical music, and because I always forget in this section
Yeah.
about like younger people. I was asked this about physical music, and I sound like such an old man. And I'm like, oh my god, I can remember cassette tapes in the actual shop. So,
Yeah.
so what is your first sort of like album or single? I mean, people don't really
Ooh.
remember singles. You could go to the shop and buy a single on cassette tape, and oh gosh,
Yeah, when I did buy CDs when I was younger. I don't remember my first one, but I remembered like the collection of CDs that I had, and it was like the most random thing. It was like One Republic, Leona Lewis, and like Lady Gaga. I think that were the main ones. But what was funny is when I was younger, I was just like a sponge with music, and I just was so interested in hearing different things. So I don't tell a lot of people this. You actually just like unlocked a memory for me. So when I was younger, I had this local library where they would have like these like CDs, like you could just like, borrow for like 2, 3 weeks, hand it back. And I always remember just being like, really mad about it because they would only let you check out 10 CDs at once.
yeah,
But of course, like anything that was like a new release, like you had to like wait for it, and so it's like when that album would like you've been waiting for like 6 weeks to finally just like listen with your headphones and everything. I'm like, well, crap, like just took these 9 other records home the other week, and I can't get this thing today. And I just remember like being so mad about it. But like,
yeah,
remember that time where I just like remember just like bringing so many CDs home and bringing so many back and just listening to so many different things like over the years. Sometimes it would literally just be like, I want to listen to like a Beethoven symphony because like I just like appreciated the musicality of it. And then I would also bring like I would bring like the Carter 3 by Lil Wayne home too, so it would be like anything at all, where I just listened to everything across the spectrum. And I think that was like really important for me in my developmental years. I think there's something really special about having like a physical thing that you can
yeah,
hold in your hand, whether it's like, a vinyl, a CD. I think there's something more special about it. Even in my car, I have like a collection of CDs. It's almost like a time capsule for me. And it is Jay-Z's Magna Carta. It's Good Kid, Mad City. Big Sean's Dark Sky Paradise. I believe it's his second album with Blessings and all that with Drake. So it's like kind of like a time capsule of like 2013 to 2015 and hip hop that I kind of listen to as well. But I just kind of appreciate just having that physical thing I can just put in my
definitely,
car
definitely.
sometimes. It just really brings me back with music. Yeah.
I mean, I think I've probably actually just got it on my desk. 1 second. I quite like this. I've got a cassette tape of a modern album. It's I don't know if you can see there.
Cool.
It's Logic's No Pressure. So there you are. That's the
I
back of
love
it.
that.
Also reminds me the cassette tape. If I take it out, it also reminds me of. Do you remember that album that Kanye did that was see through?
Jesus, of course. It's
Yeah,
one of
yeah,
my
yeah.
favorite albums.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so like I say, I always listen to this one. Like I don't know what it is. I think it's just there's a lot of like samples of like conversations of like I always forget the guy that he samples, and it's a I think he's like a philosopher or something in America or
Mhm.
something, and he keeps speaking. He's always quoted on like used on adverts and things, but no, I just like the sort of place, like the sentiment of the album. But no, I definitely. I think we're on the same wavelength here, 100%.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, definitely.
but no, I do get what you mean when you say like there was like an anticipation of like an album coming out, and you'd see that person on the TV on some sort of chat show or some sort of like morning TV program, and you'd be like, oh my god, that's coming out on the 7th of March, for example,
Yeah.
and you'd be like, oh my god, it's coming, and you get closer, and you mark it off your calendar, and then you go to maybe you go to the shop if you've got some like for me it was always pocket money. I used to spend like my pocket money on just music. You know, like I said, I mean, not much has changed now. Obviously, being a DJ, most of my spare money is just buying music. But
Yeah.
like I say, you know, hunting for things. But no, I love it. I love it. It's really great. I'm going to move on to the next round, which is on repeat. So 1 second, and we'll be back. Okay, so this is on repeat, and in on repeat, we talk about the current projects you're working on and developing, and what are the keys to success with those, and what are your current challenges, positive or negative. So to start that off, what's your current like daily challenges or successes?
Yeah, so for me, it's such a huge umbrella with that because when I started my producing brand in 2023, the spring, I had such a particular vision for it. And then over just under 2 years, that has changed quite rapidly. So when I first started my brand, I was just planning on creating instrumentals for other artists. Here in LA, I was planning to do that more remotely because a lot of artists, they already have their own people, just kind of mixing and producing all of their stuff already. And so that's kind of how I was structuring my plan as a producer. And then as time went on, I went to develop a little bit more of my own releases just to have like my own sound that I could bring to the table and not just contribute to other projects. So I'd say the biggest challenge for me right now I would say it's probably just the collaborative aspect with other people, where for me, I am so practical when I create. Like, I have my studio time, like, I have my way that I put my music together. And sometimes I think it's just like the human element of bringing into a track where I may hear a track a certain way. If I hand it to like another vocalist or another rapper, they'll hear it in a much different way. And their process may be a little bit more different from mine. So I think for me, I've learned to be a bit more patient with that. I've learned to trust the vision of another artist on my track a little bit more, letting them just kind of see that through. And so I think that brings a lot of positives because I'm able to unlock sounds I may not have been able to tap in before. That's really unique to the track. But I think it also brings a bit of challenges as well because it opens up conversations for what I need to adjust or what we need to kind of bring to the track a little bit more, which may be tricky when we're just kind of like at like the mixing and mastering stage of a track and just making a full record remote. And I just think like the remote aspect itself can make things challenging. Sometimes if you're not in the same studio space creating or in real time can share a certain idea or just have like feedback for edits. I think that's probably the biggest challenge for how I work currently.
Definitely, I like what you're saying there about patience with like, you know, like the vision of what you're working on, and like sort of try and seeing it from the other side, which I feel like is a skill that is really important. And I feel like some people forget about that. So it's good that you're mentioning about trying to see it from the other side, because everyone has different experiences, and it's good sometimes to get the other side of the coin. Not to, I couldn't think of a better word, but do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's good that you say that, because I feel like when it comes to music, it is sort of like just being open, isn't it? To see where things will go, because you sort of like you say, you have a vision in your head, but then maybe the vocalist or the rapper may have a different vision, and it's sort of like taking the best elements of both and putting them together to make something even better. So yeah, I love that.
Exactly. And I think for me too, it's something where like it's also like hard when it's a creative field that I am in and the timeline and the way a project works is kind of based on the creativity of like multiple people where I have a few projects going on right now where I had an initial track that I was working on with an artist. The artist started writing to it and they kind of came back to me and said, like I don't know, like after starting to write more, if this is like my vibe. I don't know if this is something I'm connecting to, and I've had to go back to the drawing board. But then if I'm creating an instrumental for that artist, like I want to kind of pull a little bit from like what their sound is to do something that is authentic to them. And I think that can be tough for me a little bit where I'm like, okay, I know what I want to create, but sometimes creatively, you're just not there to make that type of record where my ears or my focus may be in something that's like a completely different style. And then by the time I'm able to make that record and pass it on to the artist again, they may not be in the life space or just like in a creative space to write to it right away. And that may be the next month or two later. So I think it's like also just like allowing the track to kind of like be its own thing and to come to life in its most authentic way. And you can't force that. And I feel like the best music I've ever written has either been in like an hour creating the instrumental, and I know I have it, or it's been like a year. And it's just been a lot of edits and just taking the time just to have that track where it is. And some a conversation I have with a lot of the artists I work with is sometimes they feel bad about suggesting edits to me, and I always remind the artists that I work with, I'm like, no, like please bring every edit, every suggestion to the table, because I want to have the best record that both artists, like both the artist and the producer, can be proud of. So I tell everybody, like, if it's going to take 3 years to have the song where we want it, it's going to be 3 years. If it's 1 week
Yeah,
and we're happy with it, it's 1 week. And so I think just having that freedom as a producer and being able to allow that for other people, to have that freedom with the project is something I've been able to bring along with everything I've been working on.
definitely. I love that, and I think it's all about, like you were saying there. It's just about getting to that flow state where you're in the flow of creating the music, and you don't really sort of have to force it. It's coming naturally, and it's hard to, with life at times, to get to be in that space 100% of the time, because of all these other things you have to do now in music. Is obviously be your own promoter, the social media, and it sort of takes you away
Yeah.
from this is the biggest topic that actually comes up, is about
Yeah.
the other side. Like the music, I feel like everyone I've spoken to and everyone I ever will speak to has the music down, but then like you have to like get taken away from that, essentially, because of all the X, Y, and Z things you have to do. No wonder sometimes it is hard to get to that flow state, because your mind might be on, I've got to go print those leaflets out for the event I'm doing, or so definitely. But like I say, I love that once you get to that flow state, it's such a good feeling, and I don't know how you
Yeah.
feel. You can just sort of like create it, and like it's crazy, isn't it? Like a lot of the best songs are always wrote like in the shortest amount of time. You say in there
Yes.
like an hour, like it's crazy how that happens. But I think sometimes it's just, I'm going to sound really spiritual here, but it's like the universe
Yeah.
aligns, and it just like it puts it into be. That is the moment for it. So that is the moment it's coming. I remember this
You
quote.
actually, yeah.
I remember this quote quickly. I'll let you say what you want to say in a second. Sorry to interrupt. I remember this quote. It was saying like, if it's not for you, it won't come to you. Or if you're not
Mm,
ready for it, it won't come to you until you're ready for it. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's very much probably the same with writing music. If it's not the
yeah.
moment, it's not going to happen. You've got to wait for whatever it might be, the right moment. What were you going to say there? I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine. I just think that's such an interesting point you bring up, of just like it being almost like a spiritual thing, because I relate to that so much, because I feel like it's been like that for me, where when I've had moments over the last few years where it's maybe not been like the best day, or just like a thing happened, I'm like, you know what, like I'm just gonna go for a walk right now. Like I don't know what the rest of this day is gonna be, but I'm just gonna like refocus and like get through it. And I've had so many times where I just like walk back through my front door and I check my phone, and the artists I've been like waiting on stems from, like with vocals for like a month and a half, they're like, hey Cam, like here it is for you. And I'm like, why now? It's like a month and a half, like why now, when I'm having like the worst day and I just like don't know what like the next hour is going to be. That's when I get the vocals back. Like that's when the project has movement. So I think there's like something about that with the universe sometimes, where things happen in opportune moments, but sometimes it's the right time for the track and the project. So I just try to embrace that. But I think there's definitely something to that for sure.
Definitely. I try these days to take the no's the same way I take the yeses, because
Yeah.
then I feel like obviously we all care about doing music, but at the same time you sort of have to sort of remove yourself emotionally from the pressure of like getting the success you want and all this, and just enjoy it. Because I feel like we always forget to, we actually, well, not always, but like you can put a lot of people can put a lot of pressure on themselves, can't they? And I feel like if you take out the aspects of success, failure, and just try and do your best work, then when I went to school, this is another saying, and I've never mentioned this for a
Yeah,
while. When I went to school, there was a saying on my school, secondary school, because I'm dyslexic. I went to a school for people with learning difficulties, and there was a saying on the school, and I've always remembered it. And what people's darkest moments of it, like me, I'm trying to make someone feel better, or they're having a bad day, I'll just send them this, and the quote is this: "So, okay, you can aim for the moon, but no matter what, you will land among the stars." And I love that saying
yeah,
because it's saying no matter what, you're going to be okay. It's going to be
yeah,
okay. So why not enjoy the ride? We'll get to the moon one day. One day we'll get to the moon. But, for now, you landed among the stars. It's all right.
percent. I love that. And something I keep in mind for myself that I just try to like pass on to other artists too is like sometimes like in music, it's just hanging on, where it's like you're just on
Yeah.
a roller coaster and it's like it can be crazy. And one day is up here, the next day is down here, then the next day is pretty good. But like that's like being in music. That's just how it is. And I think it's just allowing the space for those things and understanding like every day is not going to be a win. Every day is not going to be a loss. And for me, it's just remaining consistent with it,
Mm,
where
definitely.
things may be great, things may be bad, but I am not going to change what I do based on those things. Like, I'm going to fully bet on myself. I'm going to continue doing what my plan is. Regardless of those outside things. And I think it's really hard, kind of going back to what you were mentioning too about like having like the right creative space for a record, and when you speak with other artists, just like having like the brain space like to be able to make the music you want to make, even with like social media and
Mm,
everything, and like
yeah.
having that pull you and everything. I think it's really easy to get distracted from being consistent. Even if I just go on Instagram and I want to promote like a new beat I dropped like on my beat stars, and I just want to let my followers know. But then if I'm just showing love to a few other people on my page or just opening the app, I may see something about like news about like a mainstream artist or something in like pop or hip hop culture. Or there just may be something in like world news. And it's like, oh, damn, like that thing is going on over there. And then sometimes, even if you just like read a certain thing, it's like, am I in the headspace now to just like take those details away and be creative? And so I definitely think that is a challenge that isn't talked about enough. I think with just like anybody that is creative, especially like writing music. And so that's something I've been trying to work on the best I can as producer of, to keep my hustle, but then to also maintain my consistency with what I do.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you're saying there, like you can go on to like the social medias, if that's a word. I think, I'm not sure. Moving on, I'm going to focus on what I'm doing here. But no, you could be on the social media and like you're just trying to do the one thing, can't you? Like, with distractions you were talking about, like say you've got to put a post up because you're going to do a live stream on Friday night, and
Yeah,
then you try and put that post up, but then obviously you see the other messages, so you look at those messages, and then
yeah,
that person I spoke to that I want to get on speak to, for example, for me to do the podcast, he messaged me back. Okay. And then before you know it, there's like 5 minutes have gone past.
yeah,
And then, hang on a minute, that person's put up, and you can see how the distractions come, don't you? So I've got a rule now. I have 5 minutes. I put a timer on my phone, 5 minutes, the timer goes off. I think it's helped me really sort of like limit the time. I don't even get to the timer now because of it. I'm just quick, do what I need to, get off. But no, definitely,
yeah,
definitely. I mean, I feel like we are in like we are the distraction generate. Like the human race is so distracted now, isn't it? Like with all these things that are powering us. Like I always say to people, like that want to do successful. I think like, what are you willing to sacrifice? Like I feel like, are you willing to sacrifice, for example, watching Netflix at night time? In that hour you watch whatever it may be, like your favorite programs, are you willing to sacrifice that for a little bit of pain now, but for some success? Nice. But you know what I'm trying to say, though. But like I say,
yes, yes,
there is a lot of distraction.
yeah, no, absolutely. I think for myself, I think a lot about where I came from and where I am right now. And I think the theme of this interview is I've lived so many lives, and I think about just like all the people that I've met along the way. And I've met a number of people where they've been able to be very successful artists. They're living and doing their thing with it, and it is great to see. But unfortunately, in my journey, I've met so many people that wanted to have a life in music, but couldn't because of other life things sometimes, where it was really hard to see when I just saw like the skill and just like the sound that they could bring to the table, but they weren't able to for one reason or another. They started like chasing that dream, and then something happened in life, or like they were pulled to go like another direction. So I think about a lot of those things and a lot of those individuals with what I am doing now, because I feel like I have such a unique opportunity that I didn't have when I was 25, when I was 20. I feel like being almost 30 years old, I have so much like knowledge I can just kind of like bring to what I do now, where I am not the same person I was 5 years
Yeah.
ago or 10 years ago. So I think about those things a lot with how that shapes my motivation and everything. And so when I have those days where I'm like, man, I don't know if I'm creative, or man, I was just distracted over here. I don't know if I have another song or two in me just to like make in my studio. But then I think about all the people that I met along the way where maybe they just didn't have the opportunity. Maybe they didn't have the money for that studio session where they could have recorded that song that could have given them
Mm.
more opportunities from there. And I remind myself I have that opportunity every day and to not waste it. Just being able to wake up, live in sunny LA and make music, like I am not going to waste that any day of my life. So even in those times where I have to push a little bit more and challenge myself, I'm reminded those things, and those things do motivate me a lot with what I do.
It's a good point you make there. Like reminding, like I think it's sort of like what you're saying there is like gratitude for the things that you have. And like I've spoken to quite a lot of Americans on the podcast now, and it's funny like your perspective, like for people over here, like going to like Los Angeles or New York or for me it's San Francisco. I'd love to go to San Francisco. Like to do music out there would be like the dream. But then I've spoken to some like Americans, and they're like, "Oh, go to London and do." Do you know? And you're like, it's always funny that thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
The place you live, like you're so used to it, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like you sort of not take it for granted, but you're so used to it, aren't you? And you think, well, hang on a minute, that could be someone's dream to be where you are, you know. So why would you why would you waste that? You just, be appreciative of it and, do the best you can. But no, it is true, like how people can take things so for granted. And it is just about, like you say, just reminding yourself of, you have all these positive things and all these positive, like, what am I trying to say? You have all these good things that other people would look at and go, oh, these, I should be grateful for these. And it's always good to remind yourself, like you're saying there, to be, sort of present and grateful for what you have and just make the most of it. Basically, I think that's what I'm trying to say. It's just to make the most of the things you have.
And it's something to where as I get older, I need to be mindful and always check my privilege in the spaces that I am in. And I always want to be just first and foremost like a person, just people knowing me like as an individual, and then as an artist, where I always want to extend that ladder down. And if whether it's like an artist I'm talking to, as an educator working with a student, like I want to do everything I can to pass on any knowledge that I may have that may help someone else, that could unlock something just because someone else is hustling and doing their own thing. And I think, like, I view, we were talking a lot about like just kind of like the business side of music along with like creating. And I view it in the same way of like, I think music is 50% and the business is the other 50%. And I did not realize until when I fully started my production brand, I've just, I wouldn't say gatekeeping per se, but when you start to look into just like licensing music, like registering your track correctly, knowing how to get paid as an artist
Yeah.
with different like mechanicals and royalties and performance-based royalties and like everything you claim, like the more I started looking into those things, it was this reaction of like, oh my god, like so many artists just like don't know about this and just don't know about the resources that are available to them. And I think those are conversations that people should be having a little bit more in music. I think things are so challenging just on a daily level for so many artists. It's like if you can make money somewhere, why not make that money from like a track that you've written, you know? And
Yeah,
so I
definitely.
just try to always extend that ladder down, even to other producers. Where if I'm on like a certain website that I'm uploading instrumentals to, or if I'm working on a project, I'm like, hey, you know, in this contract, like this clause here really helped me out when I was selling somebody. At least like I want to put someone else onto that because like I want to also see them win. And so that's something I want to be known for as I progress and step into other spaces. Living in LA, I've gained an appreciation for house music here, and just like going to venues where there's like a DJ like playing like a cool set, and I'm just like, this is such a vibe, and just like kind of stepping into a world. Like I want to always continue to learn and pass on what I am learning to other people, because we're all in the same community, we're all in the same culture, and I feel like if I win, someone else can win too, and if
Yeah,
someone
definitely.
else is winning, there's something like we should all be helping each other, because that's what it's about at the end of the day.
I mean, that's why I started the podcast, because I wanted to, what's it called? Forums with DJ. I'm in a lot of forums for DJs, and
Yeah,
I always put there enough room for everybody, because it's not about are you better than this DJ, this musician, whatever. It's all about, you know, we're all in the same space, so why not just support that person, be happy for them, you know, and then, you know,
yeah,
you've got your stuff. They'll come along and see your stuff, and it just you just if you just all, I think it's about getting along, isn't it, and being supportive of other people, and not focusing on yourself. I'm not saying you. I'm just saying like in general. Like
100%.
you know, just basically like you know, I always like to think of it like this way. You just keep looking outwards, not inwards. But definitely, like I think like there's enough room for everybody if you work hard enough and you keep keep trying. Something's got to happen. You know, I always say to the DJs, for example, how many days is there in a year? I always get this wrong because I'm dyslexic. I think it's 365, something like that. I said 356 one time. I don't know. But anyway, that's just so there's that many gigs in the evening every single year. Okay, so that makes you think, hang on a minute, how many cities are there in the world? Well, hang on a minute, like there's loads, isn't there? So 365 nights in the year. How many cities? So if there was a DJ in every one city, you stand a good chance of getting a gig in the evening. Okay, so then let's think about it like this way. Afternoon, like brunch parties, you know, you've got those, that doubles it already, you know. And then when you think about it like that, you think, well, hang on a minute, what have I got to worry about? You've got nothing to worry about. You know, there's so much
Yeah,
opportunity there that, you know, you just can just focus on just being the best person you can be now. And that is all that matters. Just focus on being the best person you can be, and then the rest will happen with the hard work that you do. So I love that you were mentioning about that, because I think sometimes people can take themselves so seriously, and I think let's just be a nice person first, and you know that'll make you a better musician. I think because you'll always be open.
100%. The best music I've ever written has been with artists where we're just friends,
Mm,
first and foremost. Because there have been times where I've made certain tracks and there's like certain things that need to be adjusted, and they've like hopped on the phone with me and they're like, hey Cam, like I gotta be real, this isn't working for me. Like we gotta really look at this. And I think like if you don't have like a friendship and just like a connection
yeah,
on a personal level, I think sometimes in collaborative spaces, someone can take that in a much different way of like, oh, this person doesn't like what I did, or I spent all this time on a track and it's just like not working for them over there. And I don't know if I want to go back and do that and spend more time. Am I wasting it? You know, and you just kind of start like doubting things. And I think like just being able to like be real with people and like understand that we all want the same thing at the end of the day, and just being able to be honest and give people like that real feedback has definitely helped me improve as a producer and create the best music that I have with those people.
definitely. So I think what we're going to do now is move on to the next round, which is discography, where we talk about where we talk about your music. So one second, and we'll be
Yeah.
back with that. Okay, so this is discography, where we talk about this week's artist's own tracks. So to start it off, what is your favorite track that you've created?
Oh man,
It's
you're putting me on
hard.
the spot now.
I
You're
mean,
putting me on the spot.
sometimes I feel like I ask questions like an investigative journalist at times. I'm like, my God, am I interviewing a politician? No, I'm not. But no, I get what you mean. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, what is like I mean, you probably don't have a favorite, but what's like when I say that, what's sort of the first track that comes to mind?
Man, okay. I will say before I answer this, because I feel like whatever track I say, like any of like the artists I
It will
work with,
change. Yeah, it'll
anybody that's a
change. Yeah,
fan
it'll change. Yeah.
will be like, or if anything, they'll be like, wait, but not this song over here. Like, I don't want anybody to like feel disrespect or anything like that. But I
So
think like,
we'll word it a different way then. So what are your
okay, okay,
what are some of your favorite tracks that you've worked
okay.
on? So that
I
doesn't
think I
favoritism then. There's no favoritism there.
Yeah, okay, okay, I could work with that. So, I think one of my favorites would be the first single that I dropped last summer because I had, as I mentioned earlier in this interview, I had a point where I was just creating a lot of instrumentals and I wanted to release commercial music under my own brand with artists just kind of like doing my thing as well. So the first single that I released, it's called Iben with Rico Sky. And it was something that it was just like really special for me because that was just like the first song that I fully put out there. And it was kind of interesting when I made that song. I had so many other collaborators that I was hoping to get a song out with. And I am not kidding, probably about 30 collaborations just like fell through because things just couldn't get recorded or just a life thing happened and someone just like couldn't get around to it and it just like dropped for one reason or another.
Yeah.
And that, to my point, like that makes a lot of remote collaborations just like really challenging, just trying to get on the same page. I kind of went through that a lot. I'm just like trying to like find artists just to like record and get like a high quality thing. And Rico at the time, he discovered my music. I think I'm like BeatStars or something, and he
Okay.
hit me up. Just like he really liked my style, and at the time, I had a bunch of free beats on my page, and he was like, could I just like download some of these and just like use them for an EP? And he dropped the EP on SoundCloud. Definitely check that out. He's an amazing artist. And when I heard the song, I think it was maybe called something different. It might have been the same. I don't remember, but I really liked what he did with it. And so I actually approached him. I was like, hey, I'm kind of waiting on a bunch of collaborations here, and I want to get something out, and you can just lay vocals on this, and it was really fire. And so when I approached him with it, I ended up reworking the entire track. He was incredible, and just like wanted to work with me on it, and was just like down to do a record. And so that was just incredibly special for me to get that song out because it was in the way that I didn't expect. But as we say earlier, in this interview, even of like things just kind of happen when it's going to happen, and it's like
Yeah.
you try it one way like 30 times in the unexpected way. That's the way your first single is going to drop. So that one for sure. The other one that I really like is Cyborg with Godspeed. I made the instrumental, fell in love with it immediately. I actually found the artist on Instagram. He's local here in LA. And I was like, this guy is fire. Like, I just have to get him on a track. Like, we just got to do this thing and run it up. And I sent him the beat and he was locked in immediately. And when I got the vocals back, I was just blown away. I just like knew at the very first moment hearing it. So I'd say those two stick out for me, especially.
I was going to say, I think, is your most like listened to song on your Spotify. I checked it out before I came on. I think it's like 4,391 listens at the time of this recording. It must be great to know that it's been listened that many times.
It's the best feeling. I think for me, it's a new feeling because I went so many years not having like my own releases. Like everything I did was always for another project. And as a producer, like when you're listening to a project, unless like someone's like a really big producer, like Metro Boomin, Michael made it, or, anyone like that, you'll like notice their beat. But like sometimes like you don't want to be like the feature. And I'm really mindful of that, especially as a producer on another project where it's not about me, it's about the other artists and what I can contribute to them. So if anything, I don't want people sometimes to hear what the artist did and be like, oh well, Cam was on that and he just like did all this stuff, like, because it's not about me, it's about them. And so I think about that a lot with my own releases where I'm like, wait, like this is my song, like this is on my page, like I can take that credit, but I can be proud of those numbers. And it's really exciting and really motivating to just to get that love, and that just motivates me to work on more tracks and I drop more music for my fans.
Definitely, I like that you're saying it's not about you, because I'm the same with this with my podcast. Like, it's definitely not about me. Yeah, okay, highlights that I do DJing, but it's not about that.
Yeah,
It's about having a space where new people or existing musicians can talk about their music, and it's for people that love music, and it helps to give them exposure of their music. And then, because I feel my job as a DJ is to help, it is most importantly, is to help the artist meet the audience. I feel like that my job is sort of like to be the sort of, I don't know if the zeitgeist is the right word, but I'll use that anyway. The guy that's sort of like, okay, you connect these two groups and it becomes a bigger group. And that is the way I look
yeah,
at it. Like, I always like love like showing people, oh, you want to listen to this track, and then they listen to it, and then they were like, oh my god, where did you find this, Richard? And I'm like, well, I found this, crate digging in a shop in Manchester, for example. So
yeah,
I love that you said that, because I think it's really important. Like I feel like music is the one thing that just unites everybody. I feel like it is a bit cliche to say that, but there's no
yeah.
better way to, like, I've only ever probably met one person that didn't said to me that they didn't like music.
Really,
Yeah,
I've
which is weird to hear someone like, but
yeah,
they've got their reasons. It's their life.
yeah,
Fair enough. I'm not going to hate on that.
totally.
There's no hate coming from me. But like I say, it's only, so like generally people, having when you say what music do you like, people in their mind think straight away of the artist they like. Oh, like this person, I like that person. And then you go, oh, I'm into that person. Have you listened to this? And then before you know it, you're having a conversation, and there's a
Yeah,
connection building. And that's what I love about music. So, and then you're like, oh, have you heard the live album? And you're like, oh, I've not heard the live album. And it's great, isn't it? I love it. But definitely, I really love that you said that, it's not, it's about like, community essentially. So what would you say,
100%.
move on to the next question. Would you say is unique about your style of producing?
Yeah, I think the most unique thing goes back to my background in piano and just how I use that in my process every day. So, for viewers that do have the video here, you can kind of see on the side, I have several keyboards that I have hooked up to my production programs. And so, even when I'm just working with drums or anything like that, I'm still like tapping on the MIDI keyboard because it's just like so natural for me to play everything in that way. So I think when I'm creating, that makes it the most unique for me. I would say when with my sound in general, I think it's just like pulling from just my instrumental background and my background knowing like music theory and just how music is put together. I think that helps me incredibly a lot with the entire process. And I think my ability to be able to kind of like hear how things are placed, like knowing how to like format things to where like the music can just kind of flow and make sense, but also add in more of like that classical piano presence or maybe more of like that orchestral effect, like in a certain synth, like anything like that I try to pull into my sound just to kind of like show a little bit more of that depth that has reflected my journey in music.
I mean, you say about piano, though, has got me thinking about when I was a kid in the 90s, how there was a big sort of like in electronic dance music, sort of like classical sort of like music elements coming into it with like songs like, have you heard of it? A song called Children. It's a really classic track. It's all right if you're not. This is the great thing about our era. We can just Spotify anything. It's great. Yeah. So
Yeah,
like, it's a track that's got a lot of like classical elements into it, and I love that era of music. I think it was called Chilled House or something like that. I might be wrong there, but no, there was a lot of songs in this sort of 90s era that were sort of like had elements of like classical music, like instruments like strings and piano, and obviously there was piano house and all that. And it's interesting
yeah,
how like you taking elements from a different category like classical music and put it into like dance music is great. Like I always think about like what other things you could do. And when I do get to the production side of things, because I feel like that's the thing that's going to hold me back in the near future, I need to get onto
hmm
the sort of like making my own stuff. But no, I'm going to try my best to sort of like put random elements that you wouldn't expect to work like that into it, and see what happens. It might be good, it might be bad, but you never know if you just don't take a few risks, I think.
100%.
I'm trying to think what I was going to say. So what are you currently working on? Is there anything you're currently working on?
Yeah, I have so many things that I'm currently working on. So I have probably about 10 to 12 singles on average right now that are being worked on that I am going to be dropping when it is the time to do so. So I have a lot of vocalists, I have some rappers working with my music right now. So definitely in 2025, my goal is to be dropping a new single every month, hopefully.
Yeah.
And then for myself, I also am very motivated to be dropping more full projects. So I have these visions for just kind of like how I want each project to go. I think a lot of it, how Travis Scott did it a little bit, where it's like you had like Days Before Rodeo, and then he was preparing his listeners for Rodeo that dropped after. And then it was just very synchronized for how he
Yeah.
dropped those projects. And I think that's just like a really cool thing to be able to just kind of take the pressure off of yourself and not say like, okay, this is like my debut album with like all of these songs. Is that like I can call the first one a mixtape. Like I can do like the first project as like a 5-track EP and follow it up with like another theme that I'm really excited about a year later. Then maybe that full album. So I quite like the feel of that, and that's something that I am planning to do eventually around these singles to drop like a shorter with a bunch of featured artists and then have like a full project in a few years later on from there. But I'm also excited about the possibility where I've just been blessed to work with some pretty incredible artists that have been hopping on in my material. So we've also been talking about the potential with some artists to do shorter projects together that are more collaborative. So it would be like a 5, 6 track project. They release it on their pages. And that's something I kind of do in between my projects as well. And then I'm still writing music like out just kind of like outside of my brand. So I am very busy with all that. Yeah.
Definitely, I love that. I think we're going to move on to the final round now, which is Dream Big. So 1 second, then we'll be back with that. Okay, so this is the final round, and this is Dream Big. And in Dream Big, we talk about the aspirations for the future and what does success look like in the future. So to start that off, so what is your biggest ambition for your music?
Yeah, I think for me, that's changed quite a lot over the years. When I was younger, I, I was just so immature. I was like, I just want to be popular. I want to be famous, like for my
Yeah,
music. I want to be on stages, like doing all this. And then from there, it was kind of like a 180 for a lot of years of like, okay, I just don't want to like perform at all. And there was like a time where I just kind of pulled away from music quite a lot because I just wanted to make sure, because I worked so hard on it my entire life, and I felt like it was a part of me. I never wanted to lose my love of music, and I think that's something that shapes my outlook now. A lot of whatever I do, and no matter where I go, I never want to lose my love for music and my enjoyment with it because I've just come way too far
yeah,
to lose that at this point. So for me, my short-term goals are releasing projects and just getting more singles out and just getting more of a presence with my own brand that I can further bring to other projects and other artists that want to work with me. But I definitely think like more long term, I hope to just be really established, releasing my own work, and then being able to work on more full albums with people and just kind of have that open more doors to work with artists globally. I am very excited about the local community in LA. Obviously, LA has a very rich
yeah,
music and entertainment culture. And there's so much talent here in the city that I am very blessed to be around. But I'm also very excited to expand that. I've met some of the most incredible artists in other countries and
yeah.
just like in whole other markets. It's just like really opened my eyes to new ways to create new sounds, and I've learned so much with that. And so I think like long term, that's something I'm really excited about to work with more international artists. When I learn to DJ more and integrate that into more what I do, I'd love to do like maybe more live shows with those artists eventually, go to other countries and do that and not just be in LA doing those things. So I
Yeah.
am very excited about the future with all that.
Definitely, definitely. So it leads on to my next question really well there. So this is a hard question warning, just to let you know. So, what are your dream? What are your dream like people to collaborate? Now, obviously, for me, it changes the dailies depending on what I listen to, what music I'm working on, or DJing with, or so. Yeah, so it is a hard question, but you can name just a few that you think would be great.
Man. Oh, okay. This is so tough because I feel like over the last 2 years, like my just like perspective has just kind of shifted
Mm,
because I was like so hip hop for so many years and I was like all about that. And I still am, but it definitely has shifted to be more pop, a little bit more into house, and I've just like grown to appreciate artists in those other genres a little bit more. But I think in hip hop, this might be a cop out, but I have to say, like Kendrick Lamar, like I grew up, just is like the biggest fan. Good Kid, Mad City is literally my favorite album of all time, so he would certainly be a dream collaborator. I'm a really big Sean fan as well. His sound actually inspired me a lot as a producer
I mean, I like
with his
Big
early
Sean as well.
projects.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just always like the feel of those instrumentals. I just feel like my style is very similar to that. So I think that would be really cool if I ever had the opportunity to be in the studio with Big Sean. I think that could
that'd
be
be
a
great.
really great collaboration. And then I'd say the most creative project that I heard in 2024 was Brat by Charlie XCX. It's obviously very different from hip hop, but I
Yeah,
just loved the creativity and just like everything that project just kind of pulled in from so many like subgenres. And I would just love to be in this space knowing how much of an accomplished songwriter she is. So I think it would be really interesting just to see what would be created
yeah.
in the studio, just like sonically with an artist and a writer like that. So this would be like the three that I would love to get in the studio with.
I love that. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Is Big Sean that one that had the album with the front cover, and there's people like floating in the air?
I believe so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that because
I have to look
that's
at
the
it
one
again.
album of his that I like. I bought it. I think it was in COVID. I pre-ordered it in COVID. It felt like old times, like the 90s, and I pre-ordered it,
Yeah,
and it came, and I listened to it, and it's one of the most recent albums I've listened to that I just listened to it from start to finish, and then listen to it
yeah,
again, start to finish, and listen to it again, start to finish. And I just, yeah,
yeah.
you don't get that much these days where you listen to an album start to finish. So I love that. So, in terms of like what success looks like in the future, where do you want to be? Like, say, 10 years time, where do you want to be with your producing and your music?
At the end of the day, whatever I am doing, I just want to be able to live comfortably from music and be able to have the agency to do what I want to do. And so I think for myself, like there's a lot of power in being independent. I think there's a lot of power in having the knowledge of how the music business works. As I was saying earlier, I feel like that's something that a lot of it's not gatekeep, but it's just really hard for musicians to like fully know like what's available to them and just what protects them at the same time when working and collaborating with other people. If
Yeah,
there's labels involved, whatever that may be. So I think for myself, when I was younger, I very much thought of myself as being a signed artist or being a producer that worked for a certain label or a roster of artists. But the older I get, I just really like the idea of staying independent because I have complete control over who I am working with when I'm releasing music and just kind of building my own community as a producer the way that I think it fits best for me as an artist and what I can authentically bring to other people that I am working with. So I think at the end of the day, I have a very open mind for like what success may be. Success for me is not being like famous
yeah,
or like so big that everyone recognizes me to where like I can't just like go walk to the grocery store. Like I want to be
yeah.
able to still live a normal life. But I think success for me is being able to have the agency to make the decisions I want to make, not being held. It's just something that I really don't want to be held to, and just always feeling motivated and inspired and continuing my love for music, whether that's collaborating, whether that's performing, learning a new facet, creating, or a new instrument, whatever that may be. I always want to continue to learn and continue to grow. And I feel like I can't go wrong with that with my success track if I surround myself.
I mean, I always think like I'm the same. I wouldn't want to be famous myself. I feel just purely for a mental health reasons. I
Yeah.
wouldn't want the constant, like, I mean, if you see some celebrities and that, and you see how they just get hounded at every little thing they do, and you just think, how do you cope with that on the daily? Like, like
Yeah.
you've only got so much bandwidth to deal with stuff in a day. So imagine having that extra. It would be a nightmare. And I'm totally with you on that. Like, I think it's not for me. Like I say,
Yeah, and I think there are some people where it is meant for them. And
yeah,
when they
definitely,
get
yeah.
there, they're in the spotlight. And I know a few people where that's the case, where I've known them for like 10 years and they were finally able to get the opportunity. And for me, it's like, okay, like you've always been that extrovert, like this is meant for you. But for someone like me, I think like it's also something like growing up, I was always performing on stages, I was always playing sports, and I was always like in the public eye for like what I did. And I think like being older, I kind of like that privacy a little bit more. And so I think for me, it's more the language of like, give me my credit. Like, I want to be known for this thing, but like, give the artist their flowers. Let this other person kind of be more of the face for it. But I can still be respected and successful without being like famous per se.
Definitely. So my question now is, I've got to word this a little bit different because obviously producing you don't really sort of perform. So I'm just going to word it a bit differently. So for you, what is your sort of like? Because the question usually I ask at this point is, what's your dream festival or concert location to play at? But in this one, what is your dream like? What sort of projects or and maybe it's a product, I don't know, or maybe an advert or something that you would want your music to be used on.
Ooh, that's a good one. This is I think for me, this is a little bit of a different answer, but it's something I've always appreciated, like going to hip hop shows, especially. So, when you like go to a hip hop show and before like the main artist comes out, like you have like a DJ that'll just kind of like hype up the crowd
Yeah,
and
yeah,
just do like a 30-minute set. There's something about that where if my music wasn't going to be performed and it was just like a more of like a recorded medium, I would just love to have like one of just more of my upbeat, just like kind of just like party songs, just like played and just like a mosh pit of people before like the artist comes out and people are just like going crazy. I think that like things like that are really cool. In terms of, I want to actually answer that how you phrased the question initially. It is a dream of mine. If it isn't for myself, an artist that I produce for, whether that be a full album or whatever, Coachella is a dream. Living out here in
yeah,
California, I've actually never been able to go. It was just something where it's just like never worked out. I've been out here for almost 4 years now, but someday I think that would just be like really cool
yeah.
to have that experience because festivals like Rolling Loud, things like that are really lit. I love it, but I think there's just something really special about the history of Coachella and just the significance of what that has been for so many years. I think that'd be incredibly special being in LA to be a part of someday.
Definitely. What I liked you were touching upon there about like the warm up like guy before the main show. That
Yeah.
I'd love to be the DJ that like warms up for all the big DJs. That'd be like such a cool gig. Like, because I went and saw Chemical Brothers, and they had I've totally forgotten it. Chemical Brothers are like one of my earliest memories of listening to DJs. And
Mhm.
before the main set, they had this sort of like pre-recorded sort of DJ set, but it was by this artist, and I cannot remember their name to save my life. Apologies to them if they ever
All
listen to
good.
this. But no, but it was a really obscure name. It wasn't something like obvious, so that's why I've forgotten it. But like I remember it, and I was listening to it, and I was like, "That's quite good." And I was like, "Imagine being that." So definitely, I think we're going to move on to the final questions now. So, is there any other ambitions that you like think you thought like since you were a kid that you thought, do you know what, to do that one day would be like that would be like I've made it.
Yeah, what's weird is I actually had just like a thought like 6 months ago that's like really stuck with me is for so many years in music, I always felt like I was like chasing something. whether that be a performance opportunity, a project, working with a certain artist, like whatever, like that is, I feel like I was just like chasing that, and that actually fueled me just like never being like satisfied in music, because it was always like this feeling of like, oh well, I'm never really like at this place, or then you get there and then you're thinking about like the next thing, and I felt like I could never like enjoy it for that reason. And so I think I've also reached a place because of that where I'm just so at peace with things, and I just have the mindset of what will happen.
Mm.
I've been blessed in my life to have just worked with so many larger producers, or just working with like symphony musicians, where even if it isn't like like a large project I'm doing with a larger producer, sometimes I've just been able to like meet them, because I haven't really worked like fully professionally with a large producer, but just being in those spaces where I've just been able to meet them and have those conversations and be like, this is like what it's like for someone at this level. And it just kind of like opens my eyes, and I just like kind of pull that knowledge from it. And so for me at this point, like there's really no space where I'm like, I have to be here or else in my musical journey. I'll embrace it if it is a thing. I just felt just really blessed for the spaces and the experiences I've been able to have
Yeah,
at this point. And I've kind of found that personal peace in a way of, I'm just going to keep doing what I am doing, and what will happen. And I won't, and in a way, it's like not allowing myself to be disappointed if
yeah.
something doesn't, or if I have this thought of like, I really want to be here, and then it doesn't happen. And then I'm like, well, I really wanted to do that thing for 10 years, and I don't know if that will ever happen. But if it does, I will welcome it. Yeah.
Definitely, I love that, man. I've got to say, I've really enjoyed speaking with you about um, everything we've discussed. Um, so, if people want to listen to your music, where do we find the music? Is it
Yeah,
Spotify?
absolutely.
Yeah. So, if you want to
Yeah.
just say
So
the places.
I got you. Yeah. So for everything on my streaming platforms, you can just type in Cam1. So it's Cam, and then the number one, all together. You can find on Spotify, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, any of those places. If you are an artist and you want to connect, or you just want to hear more of what I do outside of my commercial releases, I am on BeatStars under Cam1. You can also find me on all of my socials, and all of my handles are under Cam1 Music.
Perfect. I love that, man. Like I say, I really enjoyed speaking with you, and I really want you. I really feel like it. There's good things coming. I always say this, but I do genuinely mean it. I do genuinely mean it. Like I say, I feel like when I choose someone to be on the podcast, it's because I always sort of like. I think we were talking earlier about energy, and like I try and match my sort of energy with those people because I feel like I'm going to get the best interview out of the thing. And I feel like everyone I've had on the podcast or yet to have on the podcast, I try and get the same sort of mindset that I've got so that, it works. Like when I send you something, for example, to like
Yeah.
it, it gets sent back and then I'm working together. So I definitely appreciate you coming on, man. And like I said, I really want to say that I just wish you all the best for the future. Any other releases you get, send us a message on the Instagram, and we'll update the audience on the Instagram because I like I say, I feel like once people have been on the podcast, it's not the end. Just keep sending the
Yeah.
stuff. I'll put it out there, like I say, because I feel like the more that happens, the more people will see it and it'll grow, and then it'll be a great place for people to sort of like show their stuff, what we're working on, and and I feel like that's what I'm trying to make a bit of a. I don't like using this word because I feel like it's used too much, but like create a community. It is probably used too
Yeah.
much for that word, but like just like a space where music is the focus and people aren't the focus. It's the music, but like I say, but no, I've really enjoyed this interview. I'm gonna sign off there, and thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate all the love. Thank you for everything that you do for so many musicians and creating this community. It means so much to artists like myself. Just keep going as well, and look forward to seeing you continue to win.
Yeah, definitely. Like I always say, it's not about me. It really is about the people that love
Yeah,
music
100%.
and the artists and their music, and people finding the artist's music. Because I feel like, as my job as a DJ is to help people find the music and help the artists find the audience. So I feel like I'm just the
100%.
I'm just the channel to get it out there, really. But like I said, I appreciate you saying that. No, we're gonna sign off there. Enjoy the rest of your day. Speak to you later, and have a nice evening.
Thank you so much.
In the mix with DJ Rambo Rich.